James Ham is y'all, you know how it goes.
ESPN 1320, home of the Sac State Hornets.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And if you ever need some sort of intricacy covered regarding the Sac State Hornets, Kenny will undoubtedly bringing up during a commercial
I'm
break
going to a Sac State baseball game now.
For reasons known to no one other than Kenny. He will bring it up. You can watch the show on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook. You can listen to the show here on the Odyssey platform. Happy to have James Ham back with us. This is telling us about all the wine he had to pick up over the weekend after being away from his winery for, I guess, 2.5 years here at this point.
The never-ending pandemic, which it played out well on wine pickup day. It truly did. So yeah, I'm stocked up for a while. Lots of reds, some whites, lots of rosés. Yeah, we're doing well here on wine. We're always doing well here on liquor. I don't know why.
Well, we can relate.
Yeah,
we can relate. So
I cover the Sacramento Kings. That's why.
So well, there you go. And I guess that's where we'll start. Overall, I mean, the last 2-minute report yesterday, Ham, was really, really frustrating. But just taking in into account just the way that the Kings played, like that was a hell of a fight that they put up on Saturday against Denver.
Yeah, they're actually playing really solid basketball. If you take away even the Brooklyn game where shots just wouldn't fall at all, they're actually playing solid basketball. They're still learning each other, and they still don't have enough shooting. I mean, I'm gonna keep harping on that until it changes. Guys have to hit shots. That's at the end of the day. We can't keep saying that that they aren't a good 3-point shooter. You have to hit shots. That's like point blank. So DiVincenzo and Justin Holiday. Justin Holiday's been so hit and miss. Like one game he goes 6 for 10, the next he's like 1 for 5.
That shooting guard position is what it is.
They really need to tighten it up. They need to figure it out for sure.
Here in Sacramento, I don't know what it is. That shooting guard position. It'll do it.
The dogs, for those, it's all right, Ham. Don't worry about it. It happens. The dogs at Ham's house really miss Buddy. And so anytime he brings up the shooting guard position, they just start barking at him. So if you're wondering what that noise is, it's Ham's multiple dogs just missing Buddy Hield. And like, I get it, man. I understand. How much do you think, we were actually just having a similar conversation with Matt as it pertains to like Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, like Terrence Davis should have a pretty big impact on this team next year.
Yeah, I think Terrence Davis can have a monster impact. I think he can really be a solid rotational player for this team that takes a lot of the pressure off of what's happening right now. And hopefully that happens. Hopefully he's back in the fold quickly and he gets a full summer under his belt. But, it's a right wrist injury. It's a shooting wrist. Coming into camp, everyone said, like, all through camp, it was him and Buddy. They were the team's best shooters without any question. But I think the good thing is you see your deficiency here. Just go out and chase it in free agency, and that's what you got to do.
I just need to know what is happening over there.
Absolutely nothing. When Mama leaves, the dogs freak out, and she had a doctor's appointment, and so I'm stuck dealing with a little one who, yeah.
So is it just one of them that's barking?
Oh yeah, it's the little one right now. It's the corgi. It's the baby who thinks that it's okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. She tries to get everyone else involved. Yeah.
Come on, guys, bark like me.
Oh, it's so funny. That's funny. It happens, man. It's the beauties of working from home. It's no big deal.
It's all good. Now, one of the things that I just want to ask, because we talked about it earlier, and want to see your opinion on it, Ham, is Davion Mitchell. I not saying that there's anything wrong with him. I haven't given up on him or anything like that, but I need to see more from Davion. And in your opinion, is it just a regular rookie season, up and down, inconsistent play, or does this have more to do with him once again being in a situation where he's not sure what his role is or whether minutes are going to be, what's going on when he gets on the floor? Because either way, I just haven't seen enough production from him as of late.
Yeah, I mean, he missed the 2 games, well, the 1 game and then the All-Star weekend with the sore hand. And so, I mean, I think we've got to give him a little bit of a break because it's a possibility that he's got some sort of hand issue that he's fighting through. But for me, he's really only had one really bad shooting game. And look, we're at game, 60. So
Mm,
62, right? That's twice the amount of games he played in his final year at college. And
mm,
so you have these moments where rookies, like, they have the ebb and flow. They slow down, they get hot. I expect him to have a really strong finish. He's a hard worker. I think one of the biggest things with Davion that they've got to work through is that he works too hard. And I know that sounds totally crazy, but I think that he's a player that can't stay out of the gym and he ends up wearing himself out. And so I think what we're seeing here is just a little residual of that. It's that, he's out there, like, even when he had COVID, we heard that he was literally like they couldn't stop him from working out, not in the facility because he wasn't allowed, but
mm.
like at home, like he just can't stop. And I get that, and but at the end of the day, you have to be able to balance this, and it's something that like a long conversation with Harrison Barnes might be needed about how to maintain your body, about how to like get through a full 82 game schedule. Because I mean, even a lot of these players, you got to remember, like no one's played 82 games. Well, no non-playoff team has played 82 games in a couple of years.
Mm.
So, last 2 seasons were 72 games. There's a substantial difference between a 72 game season that really realistically was the first one was a 66 games season, and then they came back, or 64 game season, and played 8 games in the bubble. That's totally different than what we're seeing right now. So I think players need to pace themselves. There's a lot of changes that are happening. He's kind of lost in some of those changes. Is he the primary ball handler off the bench, or is DiVincenzo? Is that going to be a long-term pairing? I think we've got a lot of questions that still need to be answered.
Hmm.
Well, you think Dante will be back next year, though, don't you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll be back. I'm pretty sure. I mean, the Kings loved him a year and a half ago when they tried to trade for him,
Mm.
and they were very excited to get him this time around. And I think he's a player that, if you look at how he's playing right now, it's probably advantageous for the Kings because he's not a 4-year, $48 million player right now.
Hmm.
He might be lucky if he's a 3-year, $24 million player, and so we're going to have to see where he kind of settles down at by the end of the season.
Hmm. What do you think about the way he's played, though? Just seeing it, I think he's had up. Talking about Dante DiVincenzo, he's had ups and downs. Just like I would expect a guy who's just getting over to a new spot at 5 games ago or whatever the case may be. But I don't know, man. Some of the shot selection, I was hoping to be a little better than what it's been. He plays hard, but sometimes it's not always in the flow of the offense. In 5-6 games? What have you seen from Dante DiVincenzo? What's your thoughts of how he meshes out there?
Yeah, like he's not in sync at all, and he's
Mm,
not in. I mean, he's not in sync with his teammates, but that's to be expected. He's
yeah.
not in rhythm at all, and
Mm,
so I don't know. Like a lot of those 3 point shots, I'm seeing the same thing you are. They're just bad shots. Like
mm,
he can't go around taking bad shots like that. He needs to be a catch and shoot guy. He doesn't need to do a bunch of stuff off the dribble. I like him attacking the rim. I like him as a cutter. I think he plays hard. I think he is aggressive, but a lot of windshield wiper defense where he flies by and then he flies by the other way, and like a head and shoulder fake is all it takes to lose him at this point. I
mm,
think maybe he's trying too hard. Maybe he's trying to fit in too hard. And so I haven't been super impressed. And like, I hope that changes because as a player, I like him. I like the idea of him. I like what he brings to the table. But, we saw a little bit of this in spurts out of Terrence Davis early in the season.
mm.
It's that like ultra try hard that's just not working.
Right.
So he's got to figure it out. He's got to calm down and start playing to his strengths. And I know like he has a lot on the line. And when players have a lot on the line, it's not always it's not always good. They
Mm,
start to grip, they start to overthink things, they start to press, and they try to make an impact every single time they're on the court. And that's kind of what I've seen from him so far. It's just a little too much, like do less. Like we've gone through this. Do more, do less, and hit your shots, because that's the biggest thing for me right now. Like somebody's got to be an actual shooting guard and actually shoot it and actually hit.
Yeah. The one real quick, Damien, the one thing that I did like from DiVincenzo is, and I feel like we haven't seen this in years, is when him and Boogie got into it. Boogie tried something, he didn't like it. He's like, no, we ain't doing that. I'm gonna let you know we're not doing that today. And it feels like that's a level of toughness that I like that he's bringing to the table. That you just, when was the last time you saw a Kings player? Maybe Mo Harkless to Porzingis last year. But
Mo Harkless to Buddy Hield.
Nailed it. Yeah, I mean,
so I like that about him.
The Kings need that spirit. They need that fighting spirit, and that's what I think DiVincenzo brings. He brings a really high level of energy and passion to the game. But when you're not playing with two-time MVP, an All-Star, and a guy who should be like a multi-time All-Star and True Holiday, you kind of look like a different player. And even last year, they had Brooke Lopez in the middle. I mean, you're basically looking at 4 All-Stars and Dante DiVincenzo as the Bucks starting lineup forever. It's a lot easier to like be rough around the edges and do things that are a little erratic when you got these guys that are literally, they have your back in such an elite way. And so I just think that he needs to find his place. And I know, like, listening to plenty of things around the arena, I mean, he wanted to find somewhere where he had a bigger role going forward. And I honestly think at some point he's got to earn that bigger role, because as of right now, it's a little rough. And so again, I don't want to be too hard on a guy, but like start with the basics. Start with the basics, like hitting set shots, and then grow from there.
Speaking of defining roles, one guy that we were really looking forward to kind of seeing what his role would be following the All-Star break is Richaun Holmes. Spoiler alert: we haven't gotten the opportunity to find that out. And James, I'm just guessing. No more insight on this. I'm guessing we'll find out Richaun Holmes' availability probably right after you leave us, when Alvin Gentry speaks around 3:30.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to see it. And the real bummer here is, I know that Alvin Gentry talked about, he singled out Richaun Holmes as one player who looked tremendous in the 2 games coming out of the break. I mean, not in the 2 games, in the 2 practices coming out of the break. He was super excited to see him fit in and try to find his place on this team. And this is a pretty substantial step back for Richaun. I mean, I'm a guy with back injury, so I know that these things flare up and you don't really know. Especially if you're not used to them, if it's not something you've had in the past, then they're even slightly more debilitating and scary. You just don't really get it. So I think that when we look at Holmes, he's a lot like DiVincenzo, who's playing like a guy with just the weight of the world on him. Like, he feels so much pressure. And I'd even say that more than like him having an injury, him having like a moment where he took a bad step or something, there's a good chance it's stress. Stress plays a lot of role in your low back and in your back in general. And so I would think that there's a good chance that he has some, he's under a lot of pressure. He feels it. He feels like he's a guy who had earned his spot, and all of a sudden he's out of the loop. And, it's a lot for a player like him to like have this setback like what he's having with regards to the team. And like, he's going to be, there's a good chance he's going to be moving on this summer. And so you want to put your best foot forward, and you want to be a starter again, and you got to earn that stuff. And he knows that. And I think he's trying too hard, and he probably, worked himself into a frenzy and hurt himself a little bit.
Hey, just have a little fun with us here, James. Myself and Damien, we didn't even really have a long conversation about it. It was kind of in passing. He says he thinks Domantas Sabonis is the Kings' best player now. I'm not ready to take the mantle away from De'Aaron Fox just yet. What do you think? Who's the Kings' best player right now?
I think there's a big difference between the best player and the highest scorer. And to be honest with you, I think Sabonis is the best player. Just watching what he does, Even, we kept hearing that he's so bad defensively. I haven't seen that at all. I've seen him actually be really good defensively, especially man on. I've seen him, he's solid in the pick and roll. He's not a weak side shot blocker. So you could say, hey, look, he's not a rim protector. But the way that he passes, the way he sets people up, the way he screens, the way he's taken on Jokic in back to back games and realistically been the better player for most of the time. I couldn't be more impressed with a player. And the other thing is he's such a hard worker, and that's not to take anything away from De'Aaron, but there's like a focus to Sabonis that you don't often see, and it's what you see in great players. He wants to be great, and he's on the precipice of being great. I think he's really, really good, but I think we're going to see a different player as soon as you get the right players around him. I just think he's going to make Fox better. And I hope Fox can make him better. And there have been moments where Fox makes him better. But I also think that Sabonis has made every player on his team better instantly. He's like a big man version of Tyrese Halliburton, except for he does way more than Halliburton as far as like the rebounding numbers, not just the rebound numbers, but the way that he boxes out everybody and allows his teammates to rebound. There's at least 2 games, probably 3, where he should have had triple doubles and his teammates just let him down, just flat out let him down. Missing dunks, missing open layups, missing wide open 3-point shots, one after another after another. This guy should have easily had a couple of triple doubles. And, the Kings haven't had a triple double in a long time. This guy is a walking triple double almost every single game. And the only reason he's not getting there is because his teammates aren't hitting shots. And so I really like what he brings to the table. And I think De'Aaron Fox is a tremendous, tremendous young player. And he needs to get better defensively. He needs to figure out how to play with Sabonis and still set up his teammates. Because that seems to be like most games, he's just an offensive player, and you need more. And he needs to get better from the perimeter, but at the same time, all of these pull-up jumpers, he has been so good since coming back from injury as well.
Yeah. My only retort to that, not tort.
Twerk. My only twerk to that.
He's gonna twerk? Is this like Drake bars? Are we about to see something?
Well, the only thing I would say about that is, and I preface it by saying this is exactly what I felt like De'Aaron Fox needed. You need somebody in here that is either better than him or just as good as him for this team to have a chance to be successful. So if he's not the best player, that's perfectly fine for this team. But right now, it feels like, I could be wrong, it feels like this team still can't survive a bad De'Aaron Fox night. And they can be around if Sabonis, what do you have, 14 the other night? He had 9 for a lot of the game, and they were around. If De'Aaron has 9 going into the fourth quarter, this team's probably down double digits. Like they can't do without what he brings to the table at a high level.
Well, I mean, I think what we're looking at right now is you got 3 players that are playing at a really high level, and we can judge how they're playing individually, as teammates, whatever. I mean, clearly Sabonis and Fox are playing better than Harrison Barnes, but we can still see the separation between those 3 players and the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm.
We need the rest of the team to either rise up, or we need Monty McNair to find new players to rise up with them. And to me, I get what you're saying, but like again, if Harrison Barnes is putting up 30, then you don't need De'Aaron Fox to put up 25 when you got Sabonis. I think that there's a balancing point here, and the point you made about I think De'Aaron Fox has felt like this entire season, like he's pushing a giant boulder up a hill and he's doing it by himself. And I think some of that was self-imposed. And I think the pressure of, the new contract and all that stuff really, really played heavy on him. But also the pressure of being the face of a franchise that is absolutely failing, like losing way too many games and bad. And I think the pressure of that, he really did take too much of that on himself. Like it's all his fault. And that's because some fans say that. it's because he reads some of that. But I also think at the end of the day, when you put Sabonis in, it's almost like Fox is this little tiny dude pushing a giant boulder up a hill, and then all of a sudden you have this gigantic dude who just put his hands on the rock behind De'Aaron Fox and says, "Hey, let's push this up together." And I think that's the moment where it didn't just release some of the pressure off of De'Aaron Fox as far as like being, the best player, the highest scoring player. You now have another pillar to the franchise that is holding up another corner. So I think that's the biggest thing where we went from like what De'Aaron Fox was feeling was like a car with 3 blown tires and he's trying to drag the car along. And now all of a sudden you got, a couple more tires are filled up. And that's a good thing for Fox.
Yes.
You're listening to D-Lo and KC along with 1320 Kings insider James Ham here on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lashers Elk Grove Dodge. James, this the most, win or lose, playing whatever. This the most critical stretch for the Kings to determine exactly what they are. Like I made the argument to Matt and Kenny a few moments ago. If the Kings play like they did versus Chicago in these 2 games against Denver tonight, they're winning this game by 25 points.
Yep.
The problem is we've never seen that actually happen. And now we're wondering, is this, to me, tonight against a 19-41 Oklahoma City team, we're going to find out like if this Kings team truly is different or not.
I'll say this. If you don't win 4 out of 5 or all 5 in this stretch right here, you're absolutely cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way around it. I mean, because the Kings basically have these 5 games and, Dallas is tucked in there. But again, I'm not someone who totally fears Dallas as a team. But if you can get through this stretch right here, what do we got? OKC, New Orleans, San Antonio, Dallas, and the Knicks.
The Knicks, yeah.
Like, after that, of the remaining 15 games, 10 are against teams with 500 records or better. Almost every single one of those teams is not just better, but they're really good. We're talking about you got another game against the Bucks. You got a 1 or 2 against the Suns. I mean, it's tough. You got Utah on the schedule. You got Denver again on the schedule. Like, it's a brutal stretch. And that means that you only have 5 other games that are remaining against sub 500 teams. So if you don't take advantage, it's not even take advantage. If you don't win right now, then your season's over. There's no way to make up 3 or 4 games on the schedule because you only have 5 more games against truly beatable opponents. And then, you could look at the Suns, the final game of the season. Suns might have their place in the standings already secured, so they might sit a bunch of guys. But even that, I mean, who knows with the Kings? You never know when players sit whether they're going to win or lose. But the other problem the Kings have is that they started the season 6-6 on the road, and they have 7 wins on the road on the season. So they are 1-16 on the road since starting 6-6.
Come on, man.
They've won 1 road game since December 1st.
Come on, man.
December 1st.
Is that Washington? Who
Yes.
was that? Yeah.
Washington. The only road game that they won.
That is nasty.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't, this is put up or shut up. I mean, this team talked a lot early on. They understand where they're at. They look at the standings like the rest of us, but you have to actually win a game. You got to stop talking about it, and that's it. So either you win like 4 or 5 of these games right here, and then you go through this crazy trial of, the Nuggets, the Utah, Milwaukee.
Chicago.
Like, you're going to get beat up, right?
Boston, Phoenix.
Yeah. But then you still have, I think, back-to-backs against Houston. You've got New Orleans one more time. This is it again. This stretch, you're also playing teams that you're competing with. I just don't know. I mean, are the Kings competing with San Antonio and New Orleans, or you just said they're playing a 19-41 team? They're 22-40.
Yeah.
Right. The Kings.
Yeah. We noticed that earlier too.
Or are they playing OKC for the 5th pick in the draft? The 5th worst record in the draft. Yeah.
We'll find out when you go to talk to Alvin here in a few minutes, and he says, "Yeah, Sabonis, De'Aaron, they're all gonna sit tonight." Then you'll know. Then you'll know what they're fighting for.
Yeah, just play taps.
You know, the other tough part about that schedule is they don't have the Lakers anymore.
Hey, again, the Lakers are more than willing to give up one of the 9th or the 10th spot. Like if 2 teams get hot right now with 20 games left, 2 teams of New Orleans or the Kings or the Spurs, they easily could wipe the Lakers out and put them in.
Well,
but getting hot is almost impossible for the Kings just because it's all on the road and it's all against good teams.
Well, James, the crazy thing is I don't know if the math completely checks out just yet, but look at this week. Like if the Kings got crazy, let's go crazy, Prince, and went 3-1 this week, the Lakers could conceivably go like 0-3. It could be like a game and a half behind the Lakers or something like that by the time we talk next Monday.
Yeah, it's about the loss column. I think they trail the Lakers by 7 in the loss column.
Mm-hmm.
It might be 6, but it's a lot. Either way, it's a
7.
lot.
Yeah.
And so that's where you really, at this point in the season, you have to start watching that, and you need to start watching college basketball to start looking at these prospects. Because even if the Kings somehow slide into the 10, which again I think is so slim, it really is tough at this point. You're still talking about, even if they make it to 10, they're still looking at a top 8 or 9 going into the lottery. So an opportunity to move up into the top 4.
That's why if I'm the Pelicans or Sacramento, not so much San Antonio because they have rings, and Portland, this just doesn't seem to be the route that they're going. I'd be salivating at the 10th spot thinking, I got a chance to play the Lakers to get to the playoffs. I got a chance to play with against the team that's fighting with their home crowd. Oh yeah, I'm good on that. Sign me up. I'll take my chances. They're at the 10th seed to beat the Lakers. Would you have to beat them twice? I'd take my chances on that.
You gotta beat. So the 7-8 plays. Whoever wins a 7-8 is a 7, and then the 8-9. I mean the 9-10 plays. Whoever wins goes on to play the loser of the 7-8 game, and then whoever.
So
wins
I got
that
a one-off
game
against the Lakers. I'll take it.
You got one-off, and you got to win 2 games in a row. That's it.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it just to eliminate the Lakers. Like, oh, we lost. We lost the second one, but we took the Lakers out with us
here in Sacramento. That's a playoff win if you can eliminate the Lakers for sure.
I mean, not wrong.
James, I'm doing my job. Don't do my due diligence right now. Albany State playing Spring Hill in the start of the SIAC tournament. That's Division II, by the way. So
that's not
guy 22. I don't know his name, but
that's not why
mid-range game.
That's not due diligence. Like the Kings aren't drafting anyone from there.
Come on, man, you never know.
You're just a degenerate. Like you're trying to use different terms for being a degenerate.
Are you betting on that game? Do you have money on this game?
The Kings have all their second round picks. You never know what they might do with one. Come on now.
Yeah, I think they have.
So he may hit me up.
They have 2 second-round picks. They do. They have 2 second-round picks.
Number
and people,
22, I don't know his name, but like his mid-range game.
Yeah, people are asking, like, do I like Chet Holmgren or Jabari Smith? Like, either one. I'll take either one. Like, if somehow the Kings get up into the top 2, like, that's easy. And now, if you're not in the top 2, if you're 3, 4, or 5, I'm probably trading that pick and going and getting, a big-time player that's a little bit older, that has some mileage, that can help improve this team quickly. Yeah.
Kenny out here watching Division II basketball, talking about I'm doing my research.
I'm just trying to do my due diligence, man. I'm a professional out here. Like I said, the SIAC tournament underway.
You gonna chat up Monty McNair in the hallway again? Tell him about what you saw on your iPad. Is that what you're gonna do?
Don't even know the guy's name. Check out this guy, number 22. They don't have names on the back of their jerseys, So it's number 22.
That's typically not a good sign when they don't have names on the back of their jerseys. Yeah.
With Rashawn Holmes out of the lineup, we've seen increased minutes for Damian Jones. Obviously, coming out of the All-Star break, it's like, all right, Damian Jones, congratulations, you're going to get more minutes. Also, you're going to go against the league's MVP, who's trekking towards possibly a second straight MVP. What do you think of what Damian Jones has been able to do the last 2 games in particular?
I think it's what we've seen from Damian Jones all year. Like, if he's given minutes, he produces. And there are a couple of games where he just has absolute stinkers where you're like, oh, no. But that happens with young players. And, he is like 26, probably going on 27 now. But that doesn't mean that he's not a young player in NBA standards. He's not a guy who played a ton of minutes early in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's a guy that, in all honesty, I would love to see him as a backup center next season in Sacramento. You got Alex Len under contract at $4 million, and Damian Jones is not under contract. So I think that that's a bit of an issue. But like if I'm looking at a true backup center, I want to release, Rashawn Holmes into the wild and let him. I want to trade him to go get another asset at a different position because I don't think it's fair for him to play behind Domantas Sabonis and pick up scraps. But I think there are enough players around, between Lynn and Neemias Queta is still there. But I really do like Damian Jones. I think he can fit. I also think that, they've told him and Chimezie Metu when they go in the game, like swing at everything, like go try to block everything. And when they do that, they're really fun to watch and they can be really impactful. And he's a super athlete. He's a good rim runner. He's different than, most of the other players they have.
Yeah. We haven't seen a whole lot of this guy, but what do you think about Trey Lyles? I mean, I've been intrigued by him, his ability to stretch the floor with his jump shot at that 4 position. But he's done some good things. He's been non-existent sometimes, but I feel like we just haven't seen enough of him to get a good gauge on him. What have you been able to kind of get a gauge on him at all?
Maybe a little bit. Like what we have seen of him, I haven't been like super impressed. He doesn't look like he's in elite NBA shape, although that might just be his body type. I think it's really hard to play him alongside Sabonis just because neither one of those guys are going to defend anyone on the perimeter, and you're going to get in all kinds of trouble. So his ability to stretch the floor, his ability to score around the basket, he is a solid rebounder. He's a big body. I think that there's a lot of good there, but at this point in his career, he's more like an undersized 5, and the Kings have like 14 5s on the roster. And so for me, like he doesn't look like a stretch 4 to me. I would like to have seen a more versatile version of him brought in as like a player archetype to look at and put next to Sabonis. And, again, I personally would like to see from here on out, I'd like to see so much more of Harrison Barnes at the 4 alongside Sabonis and try to backfill that 3 with Harkless and Justin Holiday and Dante DiVincenzo and whoever else you can throw out there at the 3 and go smaller. Just because I think that, you really do need to see how floor spacers work with Sabonis and start getting a rhythm with Sabonis and Fox with floor spacers.
You mentioned moving Rashawn Holmes, letting him off into the wild. Like, is moving Rashawn appealing because of what he could get in return, or is it because having him at that backup position behind Domantas Sabonis at 3 more years, 30 plus, that it's not worth it in that sense when you can work with Neemias Queta or perhaps Damian Jones?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, you've got to spend your money wisely at every position.
I got you.
And this team doesn't have enough depth at the 3. And again, you start looking at some of these guys, some of the contracts that they have, right? So Mo Harkless is expiring I think he's at $4.5 million. Alex Len, $4 million. Justin Holiday, $6.5 million. You start tacking those together with the Rashawn Holmes, and all of a sudden you have a similar situation to what we had going into the deadline, where you had $20 million worth of expiring contracts to play with, and it actually got you value and stuff like that. So I wouldn't doubt that we start seeing some of those things happen during the offseason where they're just trying to upgrade. I mean, that to me, the biggest issue that I see is they have to upgrade in talent, and it's unfortunate that Rashawn Holmes just isn't going to get the minutes. He's not going to be able to be as impactful as he has been over the last couple of years because I don't think they believe he can play the 4. And defensively, I think he can play the 4. But the fact that he can't space the floor, you could never have him and Fox and Sabonis on the floor together. If no one's spacing the floor, that's just going to be ugly, ugly. Unless you have unless you're running that with like Steph and Clay, and they're hitting every single three and spacing the floor single-handedly. The Kings just don't have that, and they did not have that with Buddy Hield. They just had a guy who shot a lot of threes.
Is that his biggest downfall? Sorry, Kenny.
No,
is that Rashawn's ultimate downfall with this team? Is that he can't stretch the floor the way that they need?
Yeah, I don't even want to call it a downfall. I just think that the team changed on him. The team went and did something different.
Well, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I meant with this incarnation of the team, like it just won't work because he can't.
Yes.
He can't stretch.
It won't work because he can't, and Sabonis can't, and Fox can't. It's not just that one of them.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
and I mean, like, look, if Fox was shooting 37% like he did a couple of years ago from three, then I don't feel that way. I think you could actually do a few different things. And that's where, like, a lot of people, like, give me grief because I talk about the lack of shooting by DiVincenzo and Holiday and some of these other players that just aren't hitting their shots. And they're like, well, why aren't you bringing up De'Aaron Fox? It's like, well, first of all, De'Aaron Fox is averaging like 27 points a game over the last month, over the last like 7 games or whatever it is since he's been back from injury. So that's first up. Secondly, his limitations, but he's still one of your stars. So you need to put players around him that make him better, that make his life easier. The other guys, you're not building your franchise around. You are building your franchise around Sabonis. You are building it around Fox. And the only way to do that is to put 8 shooters on this roster. And then you go watch the Denver Nuggets, and they got one dude after another that just absolutely laces the ball from 3. And, when they're coming off the bench with Austin Rivers, and he's nailing threes, well, the Kings don't have that guy. They don't have that guy who's doing that right now. And that's trouble. And so, like, I would like to say that, like, it's because they're not comfortable or whatever, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they have to do their job, and they have to do it really well, or this thing does not work. And you can instantly see the cogs that are missing in the wheel. It's so simple to look at. And it's almost like, if the Kings would have just gone out and really pushed hard to get in on, say, that Norman Powell deal that Portland just gave him away, if you could have got Norman Powell to go with the other 3 guys that you're building around, then all of a sudden you got that shooter, that floor spacer, that guy who can do some things off the dribble. You know what I mean? It's like you needed that one more piece now, and it kind of looks like, you got 3 wheels, and then the other 5 or 6 guys that are playing, some of them are having good moments, but no one's really stepping out. And I want to take Davion out of that because he's so young and he's hit, his second wall. And I still think he's going to be really productive and can give you that 3-point shooting and can do the defensive things that you need. You just need more 3-and-D guys that are in different shapes and sizes than Davion Mitchell.
James, we got to let you go. You got to go talk to Alvin Gentry. So we will report on exactly what James tweets in the next couple of minutes when we return. We also posed the question, who is the Kings' best player right now? We posted that exclusively on youtube.com/ESPN1320. Poll's been up for 20 minutes. We're going to close it, and we won't even read the results on the air because it comes across as shade, but it's
a
not
landslide.
Close.
You guys are out of control.
It's not close
people
at all.
Real quick,
I cast my vote too, but
real quick, the dogs are okay, right? They're okay.
Yeah, they got quiet. I don't know. Well,
yeah,
eventually they get quiet, but my youngest is about to walk in the door any time, so it's probably a good time to run.
There you go. James, we appreciate you as always. We'll